Hi, and welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about the French and Indian War from the years of 1758 to 1760 to find out how exactly did the British turn the war in their favor. In the last lesson, you learned that conflict between the French and the British started in 1754 over the control of the Ohio River Valley. However, war was not officially declared until 1756. And up until now, the French were winning big time. They even tricked George Washington into giving up the Ohio River Valley and defeated England's top general, Edward Braddock. The French got to celebrate a lot of victories and even strengthen their grip on North America. The Native Americans here who allied with the French started attacking the British colonists and taking what they believed belonged to them, including kidnapping children to replace lost loved ones. Needless to say, the British and the colonists were not happy about this. The situation became even more dicey when John Campbell, the Earl of Loudoun, replaces Edward Braddock as the British general in charge of the whole war effort. A distinguished military commander, he believed the true English citizens who were the people of England were superior to those in the colonies. He even goes as far as to insult the colonists and demand that they do their duty by blindly obeying and following orders. It should go without saying that this did not sit well with the colonists and the colonial leaders, as they preferred to be treated like equals and ask their opinion and have more control over their own local affairs. The colonists were kind of like that moody, disgruntled teenager who wants to be treated like an adult, both heard and respected. And when they're not, they start feeling a little rebellious. No need to fear. Pitt is here in 1758. William Pitt, England's Secretary of State, comes to save the day. He replaces Lord Loudoun, and devises a plan to win not just the French and Indian War, but the global war known as the 7 Years' War. And he believes the key to success is by winning the war in America first. So, Pitt's plan. In order to win, he needs to relocate the bulk of the British war effort to North America, launch a three-pronged attack on the French that will lay siege to all of New France, cutting off supplies and reinforcements and getting the French to surrender. Step one of the plan, give the colonists everything they need. So he sent over more ships, troops, cannons, artillery, tanks, ammunition, money, but not tanks. And all of this would come at a really steep price in a few short years. Step two, attack the French in the three most strategic locations: the mouth of the St. Lawrence River, the Great Lakes, and the Ohio River Valley. The idea was to cut off the French forts along the St. Lawrence River so that they couldn't get supplies and reinforcements. At Louisburg, the siege lasted about 1 month. But in the end, the French ships were destroyed and the fort burned. A major supply and communication line was officially shut off, and the first domino of Pitt's plan started to fall. At the Battle of Frontenac was another part of the three-pronged attack, and this was to remove the French forts from the Great Lakes. Frontenac was the supply and communication hub of the French Empire, North America. The British forces, as a result of Pitt's plan, greatly outnumbered the French. And the French surrender the fort after a very brief siege. With this defeat, Pitt's siege of North America is beginning to tighten. Just about a year later, the British get another quick victory at the Battle of Niagara. This was a signal that the war was closing in, the end was near, and the British victory was imminent. The British again, with overwhelming force, defeated the French for the biggest prize, the Ohio River Valley. This is where the three rivers meet. Now that the British owned the land and they had to give it a good English name, so they named it Fort Pitt after William Pitt. The city that grew around this area became known as Pittsburgh, home of the Pittsburgh Steelers and Pioneer alum Matt Filer. Step 3, siege all of New France. This gets us to the Battle of Quebec in 1759. For 3 months, British General James Wolfe bombarded the city of Quebec. But with Quebec located up high on the cliffs, Wolfe's artillery had very little impact. Until one day when the entire British army would eventually scale the cliffs with artillery and supplies all in the middle of the night and stand ready to fight on the plains of Abraham the next morning. In shock, the French general, the Marquis de Montcalm, rushed out to fight the European style instead of remaining in the fortified city. The ensuing battle lasted roughly about 10 minutes before the French retreated, and 3 days later, they would once again raise the white flag, surrendering the city and France's last major fortification in North America, and the war was all but over. A short time later, the British approached the final stronghold, Montreal. The British had just under 20,000 troops, and the French had roughly 2,000, meaning the British outnumbered the French 10-1. The siege lasted 3 days, and the French once again raised the white flag, surrendering in 1760, thus ending the conflict in North America, but not yet the 7 Years' War. So, in order to find out what happens there, tune in next time to find out what happened when they signed the Treaty of Paris in 1763. And until then, stay awesome.